You walk us through very honestly, very transparently during this process. You didn't try to sugarcoat the thing.
Last I remember, we would put a listing online, and probably within 2 hours we would get 10 inquiries. And out of these 10 inquiries, 2 of them would be like, can I make an offer?
Yeah.
And those people that were bidding above were always the guys in Hong Kong. Like we have people that don't listen to us, and they spend 1 month looking, and after 1 month they've lost what they could have had.
Make us also understand that Singapore has different things to offer.
It's set up our agency differently, right? Because this whole property management in Singapore is not something that exists in the first place. Agents work independently, individually.
We can see that Singapore is cool. 3-4 years almost, we made friends. We talked about she's 16 years old, she makes her life here. The fact that Singapore is extremely safe.
So costs are going to carry on rising, but as you said, right? Me, I wake up every day, I never stress about anything. I mean, the only thing you stress in Singapore is money. That's the only stress.
No, absolutely.
But we don't have a stress of crime, we don't have a stress of robbery, of COVID. Everybody wanted to be in landed house. They didn't want to be in an apartment, they wanted to be on their own. So you were in a market that was mostly landed, and when you saw what you could get for your money, you were horrified. Hello Bertrand.
Cyril.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Welcome to our first podcast.
I'm honored.
You're honored?
Yeah.
Guinea pig.
Yeah. Truly honored.
So basically the idea of this podcast is to have conversations with our clients, our friends, and understand what brought you to Singapore, what make it a good experience to move here, or what
or bad.
Okay. We never know.
Okay.
And so today we welcome you, Bertrand. You came here about 3 years ago from Hong Kong, and at that time you were working for a big company called Ari. And today is about you, about your journey, and what brought you here, what the countries you went before, and explore what you did.
How long?
So maybe as an introduction, if you could just give us a bit of a background from you, where you're from, and what do you do currently?
Well, we do this interview in English, but I think everybody who's going to watch this podcast understands we are both French, so that's where I come from. So I'm French. I've been living in Asia Pacific for 27 years. Moving from Australia to Hong Kong and here now Singapore, I said for 3 years.
And your first job was?
My first job, I was touring with theater, show and ballet, doing some lighting in France. I was very lucky to tour with very meaningful people in the French art scene, and I came to this region purely because I met someone one day and said, okay, that's someone I want to do my life with, and it's okay. She was Australian, so it was a big change for a young French guy.
So your first abroad
was Australia.
Australia.
Was Australia. You at the time, I don't know if I would say at the time, if you have told me you go to the moon or you go to Australia, I thought it was a cool distance. I had no clue where I was going and no really sense of what was Asia Pacific. And Asia Pacific then was very different to what it is now. But I worked for an Australian company. I traveled the world for them. That was awesome. I went to China first time in China early 2000, which is very different to China today. So that was my early background. And I didn't plan to stay.
No.
I didn't plan to stay, but it just happened.
Okay. Interesting. So the countries you lived in: Australia, Hong Kong,
Singapore, back in France only for a few years, and working for Australian companies. So
You go Vietnam?
Sorry, I forgot about that. You're right. I did sleep.
I studied a bit your background before this interview.
No, okay. So, I worked a few years in Vietnam for the French government.
So how long you were in Vietnam?
3 years.
3 years
in
Vietnam.
Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah, exactly. So 3 years Vietnam, back to Australia a few years and a half, back to Paris, sent by the Australian, and Hong Kong for a long period of time. 12, 13 years in Hong Kong.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, that was long.
So we don't really know Hong Kong here, back in my days. I mean, I've been here 15 years ago, and 15 years ago, everyone was saying you must go Hong Kong. This is the place to be.
No one wanted to come to Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore is boring.
Yeah.
So the question I've always asked myself is, if I was living in Hong Kong instead of Singapore, how would my life would have been different? And now that you've experienced a bit of both, and obviously time has changed a little bit, but how was your life back then in
Hong Kong? My Hong Kong.
Yeah, your Hong Kong.
Doesn't exist. I mean, it's not a political podcast, so I don't think we need to explain.
How was your life back then as a
Hong Kong
working there?
Almost 20 years ago, because 4 years almost here plus 15 years, whatever. So it was a melting pot of the world, right? The Hong Kong was the gate to China, and China was opening and booming. It was the world was in Hong Kong. One way or another, setting up business to tackle China. The hope that China just joined at the time also the World Trade Organization. It was in a massive sense that it's a new market, but also with amazing people. China was building infrastructure at the time. I was working more on theater infrastructure. We built I was part of equipment supplier for the Beijing Opera, Shenzhen, and I saw all these things out of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong was really the base for everybody to
attack China.
To attack China. And so in the same bar or restaurant, we were meeting people from all kinds of industries, from all parts of the world, and everybody at the time traveling, and I was also traveling to Southeast Asia and coming to Singapore. Everybody was very happy to be in Hong Kong and not be based in Singapore. Right? Singapore at the time was appearing very sleepy, very boring. It was also, Marina Basin was not there. It was under construction. It was, Singapore was still, it was prior to the Grand Prix. I mean, it was, I was working on the Esplanade Theatre, kind of infrastructure at this time. So to tell you, Singapore was very different Singapore. It was already a lot of expat in Singapore, and people who were, for example, in oil and gas was already in Singapore, but Hong Kong was a financial hub. It was the creative hub also of this region. I was living in a very specific or particular area in Hong Kong called Discovery Bay, and maybe your listener or people can relate to that. People can say it was an expat enclave, but it was much more. I arrived there with very young baby. My daughter was 3 months old when we moved there, and we needed a place where you can walk a stroller without being in the mess of Hong Kong, right? So it was a very green landscape. It's on an Ento Island, very convenient, connected to the airport. We loved it, and it was really a time where, again, the world was very different. Over the decade period in Hong Kong, what was clear is it was not the dream, but the aspiration that this world has. When we moved to Hong Kong, things changed, right? And I think the only people who knew that from day one was the Hong Kongers, because they knew since the retrocession of 1997 and Macau in 1999, they knew it was just a matter of time for them to be swallowed by the big brother. I think for the expat at the time and the people who were in business, this reality of the Chinese world going to engulf Hong Kong and Hong Kong being part of China didn't really set, right? We were all just more in the opposite, thinking Hong Kong or China will become Hong Kong. We were all wrong. You know what I mean? It went the opposite way. I think the Hong Kong people, for a large majority, knew that. And we witnessed in Hong Kong the first protest, the yellow umbrella revolution or uprising, which for a population of 5 million or 6 million, it was 3 million people on the street. Me as a French, I recall seeing this mass. I never saw that in France, and we are used to protest and display of population in the street, but it wasn't. Hong Kong was out saying we don't want that. We all know the result of that. But so that at this time, still the doing business in Hong Kong was still good, and it was not perceived as a risky place. What's happened for me and for a lot of corporations, and why people move here, it was a conjunction with COVID really hard lockdown, I was traveling to Europe. I did several times, 2 to 3 weeks, locked quarantine in an hotel room. On return, with PCR tests twice a day, with people in hazmat suit, right? So and so on and so on. So when you run an operation out of Hong Kong and you have a lot of, I'm in a small industry. Imagine if you are in banking, if you are in big, you have hundreds of people traveling the world and constantly in London and used to, it's impact your operation a lot. And you have the looming risk that the rules may change at the time. People are like, we don't know if the rule of law is going to apply. And this kind of thing. So the risk assessment that we made, and a lot of companies make us decide, okay, we will keep an office in Hong Kong, but we are moving strategic assets and key operation in Singapore. And I'm sure you saw that. I mean,
so we saw that about so many people, right? We call them the Hong Kong refugees.
Yeah, and I think you know that, but it was the moment where, when we started to look at moving to Hong Kong, I'm talking here both for personal and corporate. When we started the process, it looked cheaper to move here.
Okay.
And for me, it was a real-time life lesson, because when my wife and I, that you know also very well, we were looking at a nice house with a garden in Hong Kong, and we were looking at what we can get and the price. We were like, oh, okay, it's going to be okay, right? And when I started to look at offices, and I said, yeah, it's.
How long ago? How long before your move was that?
It was maybe less than a year, six to 9 months.
Yeah. So
and I reached out to you early on. You remember our first conversation, but I saw the cross of the two curves, right? And suddenly, when we landed here, with the same budget, first for personal and after for corporate, because it happened in 2 times, we ended up being worse off. I mean,
not priced up totally, but yeah. So basically, to put context, right? This is when the height of the market, where it was shooting up, probably depending on the zone and the area, but 5 to 10% a month. I remember that, because I was calling you on a regular basis, and every time the benchmark was higher, And I need to say that because, and the reason why I wanted to do that with you and I'm happy to be here today, it was also, you gave us, as a family cluster, right, confidence that you will work with us on this process. And that was a terrible time to move as a family to Singapore, right? It was, retrospectively, it was very important, because we didn't know each other before, right? So we had no prior background, we were not friends. No, it's important to say that for the audience. We're not friends from France related. We have zero personal connection, right? So the story about how we met is actually your wife found us on the website.
Yeah, and she said, look, they look very serious, and they have offices in different parts of the world, and
she thought that was
English. And I said, no, this guy is not English. Let me call him, right? So to make it short. So I didn't know you, to start with, but you walk us through very honestly, very transparently during this process. You didn't try to sugarcoat the things. You said, look, it's the worst time to move here. If you have moved here last year, it was for decades, it was the tenant market. I remember you said that to us. We said, unfortunately, it switched now to landlord market. And I was like, and it was not a sales pitch, it was the reality. And you said, look, we are going to find you something. You have a decent budget, but you guys need to be, mindful of the situation. Most of the place currently you cannot visit it. People put it online and said, take it or leave it. And I said, no way.
So it was a time where, when the listing was coming up, there were people calling, like 10, I remember we would put a listing online, and probably within 2 hours we would get 10 inquiries. And out of these 10 inquiries, 2 of them would be like, can I make an offer?
Yeah. And people were bidding above the,
And it was like, and those people that were bidding above were always the guys from Hong Kong. Because there was another problem. The service apartments were full. In some of those months, the service apartment was full.
People needed to find something. People that have young kids. So I remember there was this British family from Hong Kong. They called me.
They told me the situation, that there's no service apartment, I must secure something. And I told them there's this unit coming up, but it's not go, right? And I think they were coming the week after. And the guy is like, okay, should we pull the trigger? And I said, well, I haven't seen the place. And he's like, so I called the agent and I said, I've got this family, good fit. She's like, listen, I've already got 6-7 phone calls since this morning. It's gonna go today. I asked her, can I see it? She's like, unfortunately, I can't open the door, there's a tenant. I knew the agent, so I told her, look, we're gonna make the offer, full ask. I trust you, you're gonna make it good for my tenants when they move here. And it worked out, but I remember for me those days, like people were saying, it was the best days for property agent, because we were renting things without doing viewings, right? But it was the most stressful, because all the stress on us. You come from Hong Kong, you don't even know the area I'm putting you in. You don't know the type of property, even when there's video, you don't really know. And I was like, once they move here, why if they're disappointed? Because here you're locked for 2 years, right? For 2 years you can't move. And for us, it was like,
it was a very, I remember, stressful time. It's always stressful to move. But this addition to, we were caught in something that was also very unusual for Singapore environment, right? And being part of this wave, we didn't choose, all the individuals who move out of Hong Kong for whatever reason, no one chose to do that together. It's just the dynamics.
To go back on Hong Kong, you living here, was it mostly, was it first a business decision or was it first a family decision?
It was a business decision. Because we were, life was good in Hong Kong. And to relate to what you say, people also go back to Hong Kong because the life is good. It's not life straight.
You didn't, at one point, you didn't fear for your family?
No.
I remember the story where people were like, "Oh, my kid got COVID, was sent to hospital."
That was related to the COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah.
Did you fear at that point in time that? Okay.
We were lucky, but we had friends who had terrible story, but I didn't want to. With kids separated from the family. No. So yes, all that certainly play on you. Where it says, okay, it's a place we need.
But let me rephrase.
Yes.
If your business didn't ask you to leave, would you have stayed? Do you think?
It's difficult to.
Or was there a moment in you that?
I think at the time. Now I think about that. If you ask me at the time, I say, okay, we need to get out of it.
Okay. Yeah. So it was post.
I think so. Okay. But it was stressful. The move here was stressful. But what was stressful is this environment that you described. No one was able to grasp what was going on. That's the feeling I had, right? So, and it was very conflicting because we had over the decade in Hong Kong, we met a lot of people and we had a lot of friends who invested in Singapore. I'm not talking about one, but people who bought apartments or condos. We were living in Hong Kong, but they were all very, all of them were trying to sell. I said it's a terrible investment. We make no return on that. I have someone specific in mind about something in Sentosa, and saying, wow, compared to Hong Kong at the time, right? Like that. And we were talking like that's the worst investment we have made. The yield is terrible. The rent is so low. Maybe we are going to sell it. We don't, And I'm talking here maybe a year before we move, right? So that creates a lot of conflict in your mind because for me it was like Singapore was a much more lower price tag market in terms of real estate, buy or rent. It was much less dynamic than Hong Kong. You could come and visit 20 apartments and say, okay, I'll pick this one and
I make
much more sneaky. No disrespect for Singapore at the time, but you know what I'm saying. So when we finally decided to move, suddenly we were caught in something that no one had really understood what was going on. Now, if you ask me, and today, if you look at Hong Kong is dynamic market, but I think Singapore retained, from this peak, a very dynamic market, both certainly on personal and corporate. Hong Kong went back to something more normal. I have, as you said, I have friends or people I know who have moved back very often for economical reasons. And it can be also companies who decide to downsize, companies who decide to cut expat packages, this kind of thing. No one went back, I believe, to say, okay, I really miss Hong Kong, because again, a lot of people have the Hong Kong they miss is gone, right?
We've had some.
Yeah, okay.
That really they came to Singapore.
Didn't like it.
And they just can't.
Okay.
I mean, everything is nice, right?
Yeah.
And then move back,
Yeah.
and that's why I say some are happy to move back, some are like.
But people went to Hong Kong here and they moved to Bangkok also.
I mean, the fact that Singapore is now super expensive is a problem. We've seen a lot of people moving to Dubai. Now, obviously, politics and all that.
They may come back here.
They may come back with the war and all that. But okay, that's interesting. So, okay, your move was triggered mainly corporate originally. And that's actually when we started meeting, we started speaking. So when you were looking at your residential home here, what were your kind of priorities? Because I remember.
I know where you are. Okay, so coming from Hong Kong and living in Discovery Bay, and again, to put in the context, it's a very specific area in Hong Kong, very green, relatively good land size, even if, or the flat house, relatively large, and the last few years we had a nice house and a garden. So, I'm French, but my wife is Australian. She's also used to space and Australian way of life. We had kids. Our daughter, she's older. At the time she was more a young teenager or an older kid. So we thought we wanted to recreate, and I think it's very natural. We want to recreate or to find the same kind of living that you had in your previous environment, knowing that we didn't know really anyone here. I mean, I was moving a huge operation. I mean, it was a lot of things. So we wanted just so it's the mandate we gave you.
Yeah.
And
so basically a house by the beach, nice garden.
Yeah.
So an affordable rent.
Exactly. And we quickly realized, and you work with us on this road, right? So you didn't say, you guys, out of your mind, you are not, you show us something, some above our budget, some in our budget, but not matching.
I think the problem at that time, extra problem is, well, because of COVID, everybody wanted to be a landed house. They didn't want to be in an apartment, they wanted to be on their own. So you were in a market that was mostly landed, and when you saw what you could get for your money, you were horrified.
Judy was okay. So we, and you, I would say relatively, you did that intelligently and with softness, right? But you make us also understand that Singapore has different things to offer. And we didn't know really anything about which area, what, is it the Tanjung Pagar, is it Tanglin, no clue, right? Me, I used to come to Singapore, I used to stay in Pan Pacific, go to the meeting, come back, I had no, I pretended maybe I knew, but you knew what, I knew nothing, right? And definitely my family knew nothing. So when we started to talk about potentially pivoting to a condo in Tanglin, at the beginning it was a bit like
scary.
Yeah, I mean, your proposal was not meet with like, yes, Cyril, it's a great idea. But I remember we had a sort of family meeting, at the time our daughter was 12, something like that, so she was part of the conversation, right? And we're like, okay, instead of trying to replicate what we have, why we don't just try something new, right? Singapore is a big city. In Hong Kong, we never lived in Causeway Bay or in central Hong Kong. We were, on the island. So why we don't just jump in this big city central path, right? And see how it is, right? So when I remember myself or my wife, I don't know, give you a call and said we rethink our.
We open-minded.
Yeah, we're open-minded and show some condo and something with facilities and which now, I mean, if you want to move us to a land, you will have a hard time because we like it.
It was funny, right? Because I remember there was also the problem of height, and Julie didn't want to go see anything that was more than a fifth floor building, you know. And I kept on telling her, you know, if we do that, we're gonna miss out most of the market. And I mean that is interesting for us, you know, to have the ability to talk to people, make them.
I'm glad we have a good case study for you. And
we have everything, right? We have people that don't listen to us, and they spend 1 month looking, and after 1 month they've lost what they could have had.
I should add, we needed to listen to you, Cyril, because the period was so specific. I think, in all honesty, if it was a normal market period, we may not have listened. I mean, we may have been much more reluctant. You know, we will find something, and we have time, and we have a service apartment, and you know. But we realized that what you were saying to us was true, and it was no hanky-panky play by you to put us there because the commission is better. You know, quick. I mean, you know, and I'm not saying that didn't happen to other people, right? Because at the time it was a lot of dodgy things happening, right? But we felt safe enough in your care to listen, and without even knowing you well at the time, we were like, okay, we need to trust this guy because he seems to understand our mandate. He seems to be decent, and he will work for us. And that is a rare quality, right? Because it's also the reason why I came back to you with my corporate need. You know, because I don't know what
we'll talk about that.
But the trust and how you approach that make me think, okay, I know no one here. This guy is decent, and he find a good place for my family. You know.
So let's talk about that. So now we found a place, beautiful apartment on the 9th floor or 8th floor, too high, 7th floor. Only 2 floors high. What is the biggest surprise for you as a tenant in Singapore compared to everywhere else you've been? Is there something that...
Oh yeah, the fact that the landlord expect that you are not living in the place, right? Hong Kong has a lot of bad stuff, but people recognize that if you rent a place for 2 years, it's going to be a wear and tear and a situation where, of course, you need to give back the property in the pristine condition, but with all the understand, it should be understood, right? I own properties around the world. I have tenants, but I would prefer them to give me in better condition that I landed, but it's never like that. People live in the place, right? When you move here, people are like, and we haven't moved a lot, as you know, so we are still in the same flat that you find us, but the scary part is like everybody tell you that it should be almost in a better condition than the landlord don't understand that.
You're supposed to levitate.
So that for me that's a big difference with Singapore and with Hong Kong. And after the contractual few things are different, but that's okay. Every country is, but it's more like this sense that you need to.
You're part of the upkeep of the apartment.
Yes.
You're assistant to the landlord. I know what you mean. So we have this concept of minor repair. Which you don't have that in Hong Kong.
No.
Okay. So just give a bit of background. Right? We have minor repair in Singapore, so you have to pay up to a certain amount. So it's like a franchise amount that you have to pay. So let's say the fridge breaks down. The minor repair is 400, you pay 400, the landlord pay the extra 1,000. So, which makes a lot, if you're in an apartment with dated clients, you end up paying a lot of things, right? And that pisses off people, and I understand.
Yeah, it's not, it shouldn't be like that, but it's a rule.
It's a market practice.
Practice.
If you try to fight it, you will not get an apartment.
And after you realize, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but it's also landlord to landlord, the relationship is different, right? I'm currently lucky to have a landlord with understanding and is,
So the thing is, what we find when we are agents representing the landlord, so not representing tenant, if we have good landlords that do the extra mile, meaning to say, don't charge this guy the 200, 300, well, the tenant feels so happy compared to his neighbors, right? It's like compared to his friends, it's like, oh, you know what, my landlord did this, he didn't charge me. And people are so happy.
Yeah, it's a conversation, it's a real conversation. Yeah.
And what you find is, so I'm a landlord myself in Singapore, I never charge a minor repair.
I should live in your place.
Yeah, that's too small for you. Actually, no, my house would be perfect fit for you.
Yeah, actually, yes.
And actually, it's people that moved from Hong Kong that live in there. Yeah, they used to be in Hong Kong, they moved there. They have your umbrella that you gave me. And you know what, I've never charged them minor repair. And you know what, to this day, it pays off every single time because they recommend me to all their friends, all their, you know, I mean,
that's a weak practice, and when you understand it's applied to everybody, well, you need to accept it. But it's true, it's when...
The thing what you'll find in Singapore, like, you know, and we have to fight landlords on behalf of our tenants. There are certain things I will tell to my tenants, look, yeah, I know this is, you feel it's unfair for you because, you know, the water heater was 8 years old. By the grand scheme of things, you know, you got a good rent originally, you got this, that. There's no point fighting certain things.
So if we are all landlords, and I think we all, I mean, no one likes to pay, right? So when my property in Australia or in France, when something happened, I'm also very reluctant to say no. And you have tendency to blame, I mean, even if you don't blame in your head,
this guy already broke it.
But the reality is, like, you're right, you have made, you know, substantial money, or you know, with your rent, or with the appreciation of the value of your, you know, things. So you need to keep it. What I think here, it's sort of like the landlord. The sense is more like, as you said, the tenants are here to keep my property, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm still paying the rent for, you know, so.
It'd be interesting if we had a Singapore landlord sitting next to us here. He'd be like, you know, but I have to pay my tax, this, that. So everyone has his own view of it. Obviously, it's a market practice. It's important for people to understand it.
Yeah, and again, you need, and you have been very upfront with that. And sometimes in the greater scheme of, like, when you move from overseas and that, you tend not to listen to this kind of thing because you think, you know, I rent the place. I would encourage everybody to listen carefully to that. You know, and because it's once you settle in the place and your hot water does not work, and you say, okay, can you send me someone? And you say, oh yeah, but you make sure your minor repair, you know. And
so did you have to pay any minor repairs in Sudan? I don't think. Maybe
once or but
maybe once out of maybe.
And we had issue in the flat, as you know, and the landlord has been absolutely fantastic. So it's also when you talk with other people, right? You realize, okay, I have a good landlord.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with the agent. It's purely the landlord. But you
yes, and also because I knew the agent quite well, the way she works, she only work with this type of landlords. Obviously, we were at the time that we could. It would have been the other way around. I would have told you this is a good apartment, terrible landlord. So you're just gonna have to pay.
But at the end of the day, that makes you. But it's part of the element. And I think it's only because of this situation in Singapore, when you look at renewing or not, or moving somewhere else, or now that the market is a bit softer, you know, you take that in consideration. I'm taking that in consideration because we renew not long ago, I mean, as you know, because yes, we could have found something else maybe at the time even better value for money. But am I going to have a landlord who is going to be as good as the current one? And if the fridge broke, do I need to wait 6 months for the fridge to be replaced?
We hear the stories, but those ones I don't know how they.
No, but you know, we had the aircon issue, right? Like big aircon replacement. No one's fault. The aircon were like maybe 15 years old or something like that with the building, since the building was there. It was a massive job, right? From my perspective, the landlord didn't. I'm not sure we have done that so fast and quick and well done in my own property with my tenant in overseas, because it was a big job.
Yeah. So
when that is done, you always think, okay, it's good. Am I going to move to a place where maybe better on the paper and things like that, but if something happens like that, so I stay put. You know, so the landlord ability to service the flat or the house, it's a big impact on how you perceive, you know, also your stay, and you want to stay or not in this context of minor repair and keeping the things better and in better condition when you took it.
Okay. Interesting to share that. This is why we set up our agency a bit differently, right? Because this whole property management in Singapore is not something that exists in the first place. Agents work, independently, individually. Very good.
You didn't pay me to say that.
You rarely make compliments.
No, it's true. It's true.
I might have to buy you your lunch instead.
Yeah, you. I thought it was a plan. No.
I want to discuss a bit more on what you're doing now, because you obviously no longer work for the previous company, so you had to set up a company in Singapore.
Yeah.
How was that process to set up a company?
I thought it would be a very lengthy and difficult process, and you get a coffee one day and you open your laptop and you say, look, if you do that, you are set. And I did what you said, and it was very efficient. So it's where I think Singapore is, people know it's very efficient, business friendly, and welcoming the people who want to, the entrepreneur of all kinds, right? So I opened my own business here. I work with international clients. The facility to set up things, to start operating it, even is better than Hong Kong.
That's what I was going to ask.
I'm sure. And if you have questions, you can ask, and people answer quickly. And it can be the tax authority, it can be the immigration.
Well, especially the tax man wants to tax you too.
No, but they are very pro business and proactive, right? So that was very good. It's also for me and my family, it was the moment was, okay, what do we do? Do we stay in Singapore? Do we go back to Australia? Do we go anywhere else? And we perceive that Singapore is home for the moment, so it's also a good signal that it's not so boring or so dull city. I think Singapore is changing a lot. I personally enjoy my life here. It has limitation of a tiny territory, and you feel sometimes it's the way it is. But over the last 3-4 years almost, we made friends. Daughter now, she's 16 years old. She made her life here. The fact that Singapore is extremely safe. It's not just an advertisement. Singapore is safe.
Oh, yeah.
And when you live in this environment with 16 years old daughter, right, you take the bus by yourself at night time, and you don't even think twice about her whereabouts. That has value. And so, of course, it's costly to stay in Singapore. When you leave a big corporate and you set up your own business and you figure out, it's certainly more cost effective to do that somewhere else than Singapore, right? But when you put all these parameters in consideration, the efficiency of business, first of all, the safety of your family, the conveniency of everything, you need to recognize that as a price. So you decide where you put the cursor on that, right? But sometimes people take that, and Singaporeans take that for granted very often, and they are always very complaining about Singapore. Traffic jam is terrible.
We have a lot of traffic jam, by the way.
It's not.
Probably 5 minutes.
It's not traffic jam. I used to tell them it's traffic light. You are mistaken. It's a traffic light. It's not traffic jam. If you go to Bangkok, you go to Jakarta, you go to Manila, obviously.
Or you go to Paris.
Even Paris or London or anywhere, New York, Los Angeles, right?
We don't have traffic.
So we don't have traffic, and so all that has a cost. A real cost to maintain.
The cost of the car to determine the fact there's no traffic, right?
Yeah.
But you probably pay 5-6 times the price you would pay in Europe.
Yes.
I agree with you.
But you have been here for longer, and
especially I've seen the price before COVID and I've seen the price after COVID. And last time when I arrived here, I was young. I can go out with $100. And I can have a night out.
Yeah,
not going home early, right? Now it's $100. I buy the first round of, a cocktail in Singapore is now $30. It's $30 for one cocktail. So even 4 cocktails is break the budget. So now the cost has gone exponential, mainly driven by the best old employer hiring. So once we found you your property. You at that time you were staying in a service office for a couple of months.
Correct.
And then you went on the hunt for an office.
No, first I was in the service office and I had corporate division and the technical division to move. And the first was the technical division. It was a service center and these kind of things. And I started to have some staff here in Singapore, an office manager, all these kind of things. So I don't know Singapore, the only thing I knew was you went and you find us a flat. So the job of finding us in the service center and was managed by a lot of things. We mainly managed by the office manager and the country manager came and things. And that happened at the same time. I was looking for a flat, and we were in the service offices and things like that. So all that happened in the same. That was my priority to move the service department. When that was done, and we had a good experience with another agent, and my office manager at the time, she introduced me to several agents. We did the job with them. It was well done, and I had no complaints about that. You find me my flat, so I stay in touch with you. And when we were ready to find an office, and we had, I think in 6 months' time, I moved from 0 employees to 30 employees, something like that, right? In the corporate office. So it was fairly busy, and I needed to accommodate them, right? So I went to my office manager and I said, okay, now we need to work on the corporate office. And naturally, when she was right to say, okay, we are going to work with, this lady who find us the service center. I said, yeah, sure, but I said, what I can do also, introduce you to Vesper Home, but she didn't know because she was a Singaporean, and I think your angle, and maybe not so corporate offices at the time, and definitely more targeted to foreigner coming here, etc. So she didn't know you. And I said, the only thing I can do, I do an introduction, but you manage the process. I'm not telling you work with Cyril Tuzemen from Vesper or whatever, just at least it's another source of possibility of offering for us. And I later, and you know that, I later entirely managed the process. I was just joining for some visit and said I like it, that's stupid, yeah, my office will be there, and I let people do their job, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you want to.
No, so when we did the search, I remember, Singapore in terms of viewings, in terms of finding, sometimes the landlord agencies don't even know when the door is of the office, right? So you went through this.
I went. So in this process, it's when I realized Vesper Home was a very particular agent, and the way we are approaching the market, very customer centric, was not the norm. Until I was really involved in looking for this office, I didn't know, because my only agent contact was with you for my personal need, and I thought almost it was standard practice, right? I heard things, but but when I was, and you mentioned that because it's a story I told you, and it's a true story. I went for a visit with my office manager, with an agent, and she didn't even know where was the unit, and she couldn't find, and I was like, it's ridiculous. What am I doing here? If she doesn't, and I left. I was very upset with them. That was not much as just she wanted just to show the things. You like it, you sign, and go to the next deal, right? So, but that also made me think, okay, Vesper has value. So not only for me as personal, but from a corporate point of view, right? But I didn't want to manage the process. I didn't have time, and I thought my office manager was also new in the job. I wanted also to see how she will handle that. And she will came or not to the same conclusion that Vesper is the best choice to find us an office.
I think she liked the fact that we picked her up with a driver.
Yeah, you did all the good. Yeah, but that.
I mean, for us, the way we look at it, when it comes to residential, you go in my car, I drive around because it's family, it's easy, right? But when it comes to corporate, one, parking is a pain in business district. You go 4 floors down, all that. So you waste more time parking than actually seeing the unit. So the way we do it, we take a driver for half a day, whatever we need, and then we don't have to wait anywhere.
No, and it's very good because it's also time to think between two viewing, to talk. I mean, no disrespect to the other agent, but the other agent that we work with on this process, it was like, they meet us at the Starbucks. I mean, it's always chaotic. I don't even remember the size of the office, but I'm sure you know. So I was not renting 3 floors. I was not a big, a Fortune 500 company or to move in Singapore. So maybe not interesting for them. But no one asked me, for example, you ask us some question, what image your company want to project? I mean, what kind of building? What is your company, right? And so I explained to you, I remember we had this conversation, it's a 100 years old company from Munich, Germany, and that was important.
And I think that by getting your story, that's what made me think of the actual building we ended up going with.
And I think that was the perfect match because the building we finally settled in was exactly displaying the same dynamics and even the owner of the building, of
the value,
not flashy but established, serious, iconic building that people know, but not you know what I'm saying. So you ask simple questions,
and you probably had one of the best landlords, Pontiac.
Yeah, that was good. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy having them as landlord, but it was a very good fit. We saw together, and I saw with other agents several other office space. Some were maybe more cheaper.
Yeah.
Some more prestigious and things like that. At the end of the day, we settled for something that matched our corporate budget and our corporate image. And I think you were the only agent who spent, and it was not a 10-hour discussion, right? It was just who you are, why you are moving to Singapore, what are your type of clients, is it, simple things that make me feel, and also my staff at the time think, okay, he understands us.
We also I remember a lot of the questions were around, who are your employees, what do they
Exactly, yeah.
Employees in Singapore, they want access to food, they want access to transport, and you can make some employees very upset if you go in the wrong location, wrong building.
Yeah, I remember you were telling, I mean, we were talking about, is it the Hawker Center, not far,
you want to have the options.
That was very valuable because if you put that again in the context that I knew nothing about Singapore, and I had the mandate from a corporate point of view from the board to move an operation in Singapore. This question as the staff welfare, will never be discussed at the board level, right? My mission was to move as fast as possible, cost effective and without disruption of the operation. Okay, that's the mandate. But I didn't move my entire workforce from Hong Kong to Singapore, right? I moved several key personnel, the rest was local workforce. So I need also at the same time to understand what 30 plus staff in Singapore, what do they need? What is their trigger to accept the job or not? And again, when you don't know the city, you don't know where people live, you don't know what is the difference between an HDB and a condo, you don't know the subway network, I mean all that. I think we never discuss all that in detail, but again, the conversation we had about, yes, this office is good, yeah, you can have, you as a boss, a nice office, but the food here is very expensive.
People will complain.
People are going to complain, they need to go far.
Yeah, they will go 2 hours lunch break to compensate.
That was very valuable.
That's a productivity issue, right?
And when I was talking with my office manager about that, she said, oh yeah, you're right, boss, and no one wants to work here. I said, so why you tell me the office looks nice? I said, you asked me if it's nice. I said, it's nice. Do you want to work here? And I said, oh no. Okay, so scrap this one, right? So again, that was a very soft added value, to my knowledge, but at the end of the day, the office we picked tick all the boxes from my corporate mandate and the money I had to make that happen. But also, I think all the employees were very happy to be there, right? It was pretty prestigious enough to, for social life, to say, I work in this building, and that's good, right? And you can see the Grand Prix, you can see, all the perks. But it was also, and we make it, I think we make the nice design, the things were, so all fine. Well, for me it was a very, very good experience, but it started with having you involved and having my office manager, really Singaporean person, thinking, okay, Vesper actually is more than just an agent, it's our partner on that. And I saw her naturally shifting to you and your team, and at the end of the day, you were the only one that we were talking about.
So costs are gonna carry on rising, but as you said, right, me, I wake up every day, I never stress about anything. I mean, the only thing you stress in Singapore is money. That's the only stress.
No, absolutely.
But we don't have the stress of crime, we don't have the stress of robbery.
So that has a price, is what I'm saying. So that has a price, and sometimes as European particularly, we tend not to price these kind of things, or to, I don't know, it has a price that you need to pay. And you just need to decide if you are up to what you are okay to pay. So to go back to your question, so we decided to stay. It has a price. I'm still very happy to be in Singapore.
So people would say to you, look, you're paying full cost on education, not cheap. You're paying full cost on healthcare, not cheap. You're paying full cost on the car. Everything is not cheap, right? So
why staying?
Easy, well said, because if I have a conversation with someone in Europe, in France, they will tell me, yes, I pay tax, but my school is free, my healthcare is free, and I have obviously my own opinion on this question, but
I think again, it's like, it's the good place at the good time with your family at the time of your life, right? So, am I going to give you, if you ask me in 5 years' time, I may not give you the same answer. If you ask me, it's also related to where you are at the moment. As I said, I have a 16 years old daughter, so she has 2-3 years before exiting the house and going to university, wherever she would like to go, or wherever I can afford, because it's all related to money also around the world. I'm I would say in the moment in my career where I still have a good 15-20 years, at least 15 years.
Wow. You're not young.
Yeah, I'm not in the moment where I'm saying, okay, I'm going to slow down. I still have things to do and to explore. As a family, we are happy here. Right? So when you add up all that, the convenience of business, the centrality of the region, growth that I perceive related to my industry, but a lot of industry also, the growth has moved from China specifically to Southeast Asia. A lot of things happening in Southeast Asia. We have India who is booming, and India has a lot of relation with Singapore. If you ask me, no one asked me, but I think if you want to develop India first, set up something in Singapore, and out of Singapore, like Hong Kong was a springboard for China in the 90s and 2000s, but Singapore is a springboard for India. Because I think you have a very, very strong workforce here in Singapore, first of all, who are Indian background, who understand the culture, who understand the variety of languages. I think India has more than 100 and something dialect, right? It's not, etc., etc. So I think Singapore, all that has a cost, but has the opportunity is here, right?
I think you're right. Singapore, it costs a lot, but it brings a lot of money.
Yes,
and so if you want to make business, it's the place, and you're not going to make that business in Paris.
Absolutely not. But even if you look at, if you set up, in my case, right, I could have said, okay, I exit the big corporate, I want to do something on my own. For cost reason, I moved to Bangkok.
Yeah.
Okay, and a lot of people have done that, right? Bangkok has a relatively very good international connection. You have healthcare.
Yeah.
but you need to deal with a very, very different set of things. First of all, you have a massive pollution,
Yeah.
right? And I know if people watch these things from Europe or you say, what he's talking about, coming from Hong Kong, living more than a decade in Hong Kong, one of the things that was putting pressure on us one day to leave Hong Kong was the constant air pollution. I'm talking about very, very high level of air pollution, but people don't.
So we're talking coal factories.
Yeah, factory in China blowing with the wind, like with certainly more than half of the year in higher than any international standards accepted. So having young kids moving with a 3-month-old baby, end up having a 5-year-old with asthma, and still today now she's much better because she's older and we live in different environment, but it's clearly related to pollution. So why I'm saying that is like if you move anywhere, if you're in your 20s, you don't think about that. Okay, so if I was in my 20s today, living a corporate job here in Singapore, I would certainly have gone in Bangkok.
We wouldn't think like that, but don't you think?
As the new generation.
Your daughter?
Yes, she will. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So me, when I was 20, okay, I need to rephrase. I cannot talk for the 20 today.
And I think, you and I, we would have gone to the more adventurous part, not to, because it wasn't the topic, right?
So moving my family to Bangkok just for the pollution, the air and the traffic and the inconvenience to move from A to B and things like that. I saw some friend or corporate or acquaintance, business people spending their life in their car, right? We're talking about having a driver for convenience. I know people who spend 10 hours a day in their car working at the back with the driver because just going from their home to the office to another thing is, I don't want to. I mean, if I'm forced, I will do it. But if I have a choice, again, I prefer to pay more and be comfortable in Singapore. It may be not good for my long-term retirement things or whatever because I can maybe save. I will save heaps being in.
But you might die if I job,
right? Or Ho Chi Minh City, as you said. I live in Vietnam. I have a passion for Vietnam. I love staying home, but I don't see myself bringing my business out. I could do it, right? It doesn't change anything.
You can be anywhere now.
I can be anywhere, but I will not do that to my family, to myself. I will not do that. So everything has a price, and Singapore is high price. But you have the convenience, you have the safety, you have the air quality. You have also a sense that the government here is relatively doing right things, right? And as a foreigner, I have nothing to say. It's their country, right? So I'm not judging. Right? If I want to judge, I go to France. I give my opinion. I have no opinion to give here. I'm not a citizen. I'm paying tax. Yes, so I could, but what I see, what I hear, the way the society is behaving in the world that you described before, I don't mind to be here currently in a multicultural society where
there's a rule of law here that applies to everyone.
Yeah, but people care for it's a very multicultural society, like in the real sense, right? With people with Chinese, Malay, Indian background, and what they do with their country together collectively, it resonates with my value, right? Simply put. So I'm not a Singaporean, I'm not even a PR, I may apply, but I'm just looking as a foreigner here. First of all, I commend that I respect what has been done in this country over 60 years. I mean, Singapore 60 years ago was one of the worst places in the region, right? Okay, nothing, with no natural resources, nothing. So we need first to acknowledge that, I think, as Europeans. And the hard-working people, hard work pay, always. And I think being based here is also a value that me as a father, I want to give to my daughter, right? I think Singapore is a very good example of that. Is everything perfect? No. But are we in a society that collectively work together to do better the next day? Yes. Is it the case in a lot of parts of the world? Unfortunately not. I mean, we are a bit far of the topic, but...
No, it's interesting. I mean, the idea of this podcast is to discuss, various topics, and I'm very opinionated about, how Europe is going and how shambles it is. And obviously, when I left, London 15 years ago, London was kind of a very good place, and when you look at it today, and obviously I didn't have a crystal ball, it's not that I'm trying to say, I just needed a move, and it's impressive how fast things change, right? And obviously things will change in any way. But yes, I think you summarize it well in terms of Singapore, the safety, the convenience, the no stress. I mean, we have no stress.
Yeah, as you said, the only stress is money.
Money, stress, and money. That's why we wake up every day. Work hard. Okay, cool. I think we covered a lot of subjects, but maybe a few, and you covered some of the questions I was going to ask you later. Maybe one point on, because we still see people coming from Hong Kong, so if you had people moving from Hong Kong to here, would there be anything that they should know that is very different here?
I think the people who are moving today also are different. The Hong Kong demographic has changed a lot, so you see certainly more, maybe I'm wrong, but you will correct me, maybe more Chinese Hong Kong background, people moving to Singapore, so their aspiration and the reason for moving and what they expect to find in Singapore is also different to what I was expecting to find in Singapore. I think so.
There is some of that. We still see expats.
Yeah, and I think the people move for the same reason. Is whatever the trigger to leave Hong Kong, you pick Singapore for the same reason, right? It offers, from a corporate point of view, a regional base. So, and if you move your business, the tax rate is very similar.
You kept on complaining we are more expensive here.
Personal tax. Personal tax is more expensive here. I'm sure all your listeners should look at that carefully if you move from Hong Kong. But on the corporate tax, it has same, right? So I think the reason why a company moves here, it may be two things. It's also because China and the world relationship are changing, right? So for companies who are set up, I'm talking maybe Western companies here, who are already set up in China and have operation in mainland China, the relevance of their Hong Kong office has diminished. Because before you needed Hong Kong to enter China, to operate China. Now, people who have made, let's say, in the 90s and 2000 and 2010, and now we are under 2020 soon, everybody has made a move in China, right? So an office in Shenzhen, in whatever industry they are, in Beijing, whatever. The relevance of Hong Kong is diminishing because Hong Kong is less oriented to the rest of Asia, right? It's become integrated to China and to the Greater Bay and things like that. So if you are an operation or you want to grow, you see potentials in business development in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN zone. 15 years ago, I think Hong Kong, Singapore, same. Today, Singapore is clearly one of the leaders of the ASEAN, and the growth in Indonesia, you want to maybe to settle, or in Vietnam, you don't want maybe to go there, right? So Singapore appear to be the place. And again, if you add India, if you add a lot of aspects.
My question was, any advice for these people coming here?
Well, the advice is talk with Vesper when no. I mean, I have no advice because what I can say is just come here with open mind and don't think it's the same.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Just think it's similar.
Yeah.
But same but different. That's applied very well to Hong Kong and Singapore. Same but different.
Is there one thing you miss from Hong Kong?
Oh yeah, the food.
The food?
Oh yeah, Cantonese food, my friend. It's
so a dim sum?
Yeah, dim sum, everything, but the quality of the Cantonese food.
I think it's very interesting your first answer being food and Cantonese food.
The Cantonese food, I don't mind Singaporean food, but I love Singapore. I love Cantonese food. I enjoy Singapore.
But it's very interesting each answer, because if you're someone in Europe listening to this, right, you would be like, Hong Kong, Singapore, surely is the same. You know what I mean? I mean, like
No, as a French food, you can find equally amazing French food restaurant in Hong Kong and in Singapore.
Are they cheaper in Hong Kong? Yes.
Yes.
The price.
Yes. You can find your product, your cheese in Hong Kong and Singapore. It's more expensive here. Well, but if you ask me, as someone who spent ballpark of my life in Hong Kong, what I miss straight away is the food, the Cantonese restaurant, simple things, and the wonton noodle in the corner street of Hong Kong is unbeatable.
Hong Kong has more of the edgy kind of, the small alleys, it's got a bit more of that, right?
Yes. Singapore has a tendency to recreate the small alleys, and so you
it's not the same.
No.
When I went there.
You went to Hong Kong not too long ago.
No, and when you told me to go to that oyster place.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, I remember.
I warned you.
Trying to find it, and it's interesting because in Singapore to find an oyster in a normal restaurant, we pay.
Oyster bar, yeah.
We pay up to $10 for an oyster, one oyster.
Yeah.
And I went there because you told me to go there. I went there. I looked at the place, and then I saw, oh my god, what's this place?
It
looks bad. And I go there. The choice of oyster was extravagant. So many countries, so many oysters. And I thought, oh my god, they must not be fresh. It's gonna be bad, right? And the thing is, I went like mid-afternoon. It wasn't lunch or it wasn't dinner, so there was nobody. Anyway, I went for it, right? I ordered the whole thing, and the price of alcohol is cheaper. The price of the oyster was like, it felt like robbery for me, compared to Singapore. And it was in a dark alley, eating this food, and it was fantastic,
I'm glad you like my recommendation on this place. But it's a good analogy between Singapore and Hong Kong, this kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know places like that in Singapore. Right?
There are some, but they are very. There's always something, but in Hong Kong you just find it at kind of every corner. You can find something a bit. I think in Singapore we're just a bit younger and a bit more clean.
When I go, what is funny is when I go back to Hong Kong now, and I went on personal vacation and also for work, I'm like, oh, it's dirty. Or these things it's
messy,
it's broken. Like the street equipment, or I mean I don't know.
Even the buildings.
There are things like, oh wow,
It's got its charm, right?
It has massive charm. But you notice that because living here, but I mean same when I go to Paris, huh?
Paris is.
I don't want you to because we don't know there's no point to go this.
Because Paris is dirty, dangerous, badly maintained.
Okay.
The people. I can do a long list.
We can do a podcast about Paris. But what I'm saying is like when you start to live here and you are absorbed in the day-to-day life here, what you quickly take for granted is these kind of things. And the condo where I live, I'm always amazed that in the car park it's never one light bulb off, right? And if it is, you spot it and you come back at night after you park your car and the light has been changed, right? I recently noticed myself that in our lift, one of the LED light was off, and I felt very uncomfortable with that. I was like, oh. and it went for 2-3 days, and I was like, and even my daughter noticed that, because I picked her up from school when, the lift, the closed, and she looked and said, oh, you saw that, Dad?
So did it take 3 days to fix?
Yeah, 2-3 days, which was very long, right?
In Paris, you're just lucky that
the lift worked. I know if people listen to that, I don't know how many people, but they will certainly laugh at this conversation because that is it's trivial. It can look and sound trivial, but again, it's how much you are ready to pay for this quality of life, right?
I think the idea also of Singapore is if you let something,
Yeah, the preventive.
if you do the smallest, if you let the smallest thing happen, then it will bring consequences.
You asked me in the conversation what the difference as a tenant between Hong Kong and Singapore. I almost always we lived in landed property in Singapore, in Hong Kong, but we had some period of time we were in the building with lift. Okay? What struck me when we moved here, and I believe it's not only in our condo, the lift maintenance. Every we think quarter, but it's even maybe less. We have a leaflet in our mailbox saying, the lift contractor is coming to do the lift test and safety charge of the lift, and they will access your apartment if needed. And I never saw that anywhere in the world.
Right.
The regularity of the lift, and we are in the 8th floor building. I'm not talking about skyscraper of 40 floors, and Hong Kong has a lot of, and we saw the unfortunate fire that they had in this massive complex in Hong Kong recently, unfortunately. I can tell you that in Hong Kong, the lift maintenance on any condo, I'm talking even high-end condo, it's not done like it's done in Singapore, right?
And sometimes it's our disadvantage, right? Because we are so by the book that things don't.
But the cost, I'm sure, for the landlord, I'm not a landlord in Singapore, but I'm sure the cost of all that, the maintenance cost, the sinking fund, whatever you call it, I'm sure it's very high here.
That was the conclusion of our discussion. That actually, I just got a phone call from the landlord that he needs to raise the rent. That's what maintenance.
Thank you, Cyril.
I think I've covered everything I wanted. Thank you for taking part in this, and maybe we'll get part 2 another.
I'm happy to do a part 2 and to go for lunch now.
Is it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Ask your listener, but I think they will agree.
I will pay first, and then I'll ask people to vote who should have paid.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay.
We do a part 2.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.